Well, it would appear that there were no precautionary measures taken. Why not?
First of all, I resent your tone.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Vince McMahon controversies.
WWE founder Vince McMahon has stepped away from wrestling as the board of the company investigates a $3 million payment made to a former employee.
For this list, we'll be ranking the instances where the chairman and CEO of the WWE has faced backlash as a result of his in-character or real-life actions. Do you know any we missed? Let us know in those comments below. Number 10, a poor choice of words. One of the most tone-deaf moments of Vince McMahon's on-camera career occurred during a backstage segment with John Cena from Survivor Series 2005. Vince's fictional character of Mr. McMahon was asking Cena what was good in the hood before ending the exchange with a racial slur that we won't repeat in this video. It should be said that the entire segment was obviously pre-planned and agreed upon by all parties, including Booker T, whose reactionary exclamation of "Tell me he didn't just say that" is clearly played up for laughs. However, the segment just doesn't play the same way in the present day. Number 9, mocking Jim Ross. Jim Ross is a legend in the professional wrestling industry, a once-in-a-lifetime announcer who's also been instrumental behind the scenes. His tenure with the E had seen some shaky moments, however, such as the instance where Vince McMahon would openly mock Ross's diagnosis of Bell's palsy live on the air. This was horrifically nothing new, as the WCW character Oklahoma was also a direct parody of Ross, but Vince didn't let it stop there, unfortunately. McMahon also poked fun at Ross's real-life colon surgery in a WWE skit alongside a character named Dr. Heine, and even made the celebrated announcer join Vince's not-so-esteemed Kiss My Ass Club. Number 8, the Montreal Screwjob.
With his back to the wall, Vince must get his belt off Brett.
It's one of the most discussed incidents in pro wrestling history, a debated-to-death affair that still deserves mention as the moments where the on-screen Vince McMahon and the decision-making Vince McMahon began to blur. Here, Bret Hart was conspired against by Vince McMahon and others in the WWE to drop the company's World Championship in his hometown without his knowledge.
I could see Vince McMahon, and I could see him, he's got this cold look on his face, and he's yelling it to ring the bell.
The match was called against Bret, despite the fact the Hitman hadn't submitted, nor was pinned, and the fallout was almost immediate. The acrimonious aftermath led to a physical altercation between Hart and McMahon, while the industry would continue to debate the ins and outs of the Montreal Screwjob to this very day.
And I hit Vince McMahon with the most beautiful Mike Tyson uppercut.
Number 7, poaching the territories. There's no denying the vision and fortitude that went into Vince McMahon's decision to move into professional wrestling's old-school territory system and systematically lure away all their top talent.
Popular wrestlers began to leave their territories for the WWF with promises of increased exposure and bigger paydays.
The idea that wrestling could and should be widely broadcast and crossover commercialized was something that helped make the WWF and WWE the global juggernaut it is today.
McMahon's goal? To make the WWF the premier pro wrestling promotion in the United States.
However, it also made Vince McMahon one of the most controversial men in the business, thanks to his brazen line-stepping and fearless breaking of wrestling's unspoken yet defining rules. The once fertile map of small-time wrestling promotions with top guy talents was eventually whittled away, to the point where Vince McMahon became the best game in town for wrestlers seeking to reach the top of their trade.
So in other words, you crushed these people.
And I competed with them.
And you won. I mean, so what?
Number 6, the Owen Hart Incident. The Vice series Dark Side of the Ring has been a wellspring of fascinating information and revelatory interviews regarding some of pro wrestling's most controversial stories. One particular episode dealt with the events leading up to and following the tragic demise of Owen Hart at a live WWF pay-per-view back in 1999.
I'm thinking in my head, what the heck was that? And when I turned and looked, there was Owen. He was like laying in the ring, like face up.
There are some, including members of Hart's immediate family, that criticized Vince McMahon and his company for not stopping the show after Owen fell to his death during a ring entrance.
And they went on with the show.
Further controversy was also brought to the table regarding exactly how safe the rigging was that Hart was wearing during the fall. Owen's widow would later settle with the company for $18 million in damages.
I didn't care about the money. It wasn't about money for me. I wanted this case to go to trial.
Number 5. From wrestling to sports entertainment. There's a clear line of distinction between Mr. McMahon, the fictional character, and the actual practices of Vince McMahon, the businessman.
Since taking over from his father, McMahon has almost single-handedly turned American wrestling from an old-fashioned grunt and groan spectacle into an unfolding melodrama for mass audiences.
The landscape of pro wrestling was a very different one in the 80s and 90s, and things were about to change with regards to how McMahon's company was gonna operate. It was back in 1989 when Vince testified to the New Jersey Senate about how professional wrestling should be deregulated, and thus exempt from rules that apply to other sports operating under the state athletic commissions. The decision was viewed very differently at the time and today, with some arguing that it removed the WWE from dealing with certain corrupt behavior from commission officials, while others saw it as dangerous to the health and well-being of performers.
We're in the sports entertainment business, and there is a huge philosophical difference between being in strictly the wrestling business and being in the sports entertainment business as we are.
Number 4. Superstars and healthcare. Speaking of health, the classification of professional wrestling has always been in contention, but today a light has shined upon that area of the business more than ever. Last Week Tonight with John Oliver released an in-depth discussion on the topic back in 2019, criticizing the company's policy of treating its superstars as independent contractors rather than employees.
While you might reasonably think that the wrestlers employed by him are his employees, they're actually not. They're merely independent contractors.
Although the WWE wheel is made up of many important cogs, the influence of Vince McMahon is massive upon everyday decisions, including the fact that superstars must pay for healthcare out of pocket.
They also don't get paid annual leave, pensions, or health insurance.
The company, for their parts, responded to the Oliver piece and stressed the importance of their talent wellness program. Still, the issue remains a controversial and hotly debated one today.
They now have annual physical examinations. That's just nothing. I have to take one of those every year to host this show, and I've never once exploded through this table.
Number 3. Allegations of assault and harassment. Vince McMahon may have recently stepped down, for the moment, as WWE CEO, but this isn't the first time allegations of sexual assault and harassment have come up in the news.
I have pledged my complete cooperation, and I will do everything possible to support the investigation.
One-time WWF referee Rita Chatterton alleged that McMahon forced himself upon her in a limousine back on July 16, 1986. Former WWF diva Sable also sued the company in 1999 for harboring a culture of sexual harassment, while the current accusations against McMahon allege that the CEO has made out hush money payments to an employee with whom he had an affair.
McMahon paid a former employee, who he allegedly had an affair with, $3 million to keep her quiet.
The allegations go on to reference older misconduct allegations and non-disclosure agreements involving McMahon and the WWE head of talent relations, John Laurinaitis.
NBC News reached out to the lawyers for both men and did not hear back.
Number 2. The Saudi deal. We mentioned John Oliver's show earlier on our list, and this wasn't the only time the HBO host lent his name to those who criticized some of WWE's decisions. Last Week Tonight also joined others who have criticized the WWE and by default Vince McMahon's strategic partnership with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
The WWE is going full steam ahead with Crown Jewel in partnership with a country that, remember, just murdered and dismembered a journalist for the Washington Post.
The Saudi deal has been in effect since 2014 and is currently slated to continue through 2027, a partnership that has thrived financially despite criticism against the KSA's human rights policies as well as its alleged involvement with the assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Although the company has made history by presenting women's wrestling in Saudi Arabia for the first time, the partnership continues to be heavily debated.
Saudi is no different, and again, people are people. It's, and cultures are cultures, and you have to respect that.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The steroid trial.
A promise that the World Wrestling Federation will be the standard bearer for drug-free sports and entertainment.
It could have easily been the day that everything came crumbling down for the WWF. But instead, the United States of America v. McMahon et al. Saw the company emerge from one of their toughest fights, the steroid trial. It was alleged that Vince McMahon personally oversaw the distribution of illegal anabolic steroids to wrestlers on his company's roster.
If convicted, McMahon faces 8 years in prison and $500,000 in fine.
The allegations stemmed from the testimony of convicted doctor George Zahorian, who had previously been employed by the company as a ringside physician. It was alleged that Zahorian's steroid distribution went all the way up the WWF's corporate chain to Vince McMahon himself. But the distribution charges were ultimately dropped, and McMahon was found not guilty on the count of conspiracy.
It was almost like, Hulk Hogan had just won a match at Madison Square Garden.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.